You are watching Morning Express on this Thursday. It is the 8th of January 2015. Remember some of the updates I was giving you earlier. Mombasa Road is a crazy mess. There was an accident at the General Motors. I think that has been cleared by now, but still the snarl-up tailing all the way back to Lolongo, I understand. But it clears through to Nyayo Stadium, should be okay. Jogoo Road is good. Thika Road also appears to be okay. Langata Road, the usual, not too bad, but a little bit of a snarl up there. We want to get now into state of the nation, state of Kenya. How are things going? A number of stories we've been covering for you. And joining me in studio today to discuss just some of these current affairs in studio is Onyangolo. He's a TNA Secretary General, that's the President's Party. In the middle is Member of Parliament Chuka, that's Onesimus Njuki, and also with us is Ndewa, Member of Parliament Agostino Neto. We're expecting Peter Kaluma, who is Homa Bay Town Member of Parliament. If he does make it, he will be joining the panel this morning. But gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Is in order? Mko salama? All right, we'll begin with that story we just watched there. And very interesting that you're seeing Jubilee coming out, the leader of majority in that press conference, saying that Ken Wafula is indeed the suspect, should be the person the police should be looking into in as far as the killing of Yebe is concerned. And this is a story that has, you know, changed from disappearances, from the prosecution having had him as a witness, to him now moving to the defense side. And Ruto's defense saying he was actually a very critical witness. Should we be seeing members of your coalition coming out to speak in this manner, in as far as such sensitive legal issues especially are concerned, to then now point the finger squarely at someone?
Yes, the issue of this witness disappearing, it may be a very serious and weighty legal issue, but we must also say, accept that it has got political ramifications. And in that regard, the deputy president of this country, who is a Jubilee member, is somewhere involved in this whole issue. As we are all aware, this particular witness is being a witness of the defense. That's the deputy president. At some time, the prosecution claimed he was their witness. So he's a very, very critical witness. We maintain that this was a very important witness to the case of the deputy president. With the political ramifications, we must involve ourselves and tell the people that the political implications and the legal implications here are that someone who was at the heart of recruiting witnesses, of ensuring that evidence was concocted against the deputy president, is the only person or one of the people likely to have had interest in the existence or disappearance of this person. So it is perfectly in order that as a coalition, as a government, we set straight the records, especially in the political arena.
But Neto, I'll come to you. Is it right to then go mentioning particular individuals when it's not ascertained, when there's no proof, or even if they claim they may have evidence, there are investigations ongoing? Is this right? Should we be seeing too much of this politics weighing in on a matter that surely, as much as it affects a high-profile politician in the country, it's a legal matter primarily?
I think the comments by the Jubilee coalition were very reckless, especially on a matter that is of fundamental international importance.
Yeah.
One, the persons who came to speak out are not criminal investigation persons. If at all, for example, they have the belief that one Ken Wafula would be culpable, I do not think it would be addressed in the manner of a press conference by a group of members of parliament. But just to put it this way, that this ICC thing is very untidy, and I really think the soonest Kenyans get out of it, the better for us. These cases ought to be brought to finality in a manner that makes sense to the people of Kenya. I really think that now that we are moving towards a crucial defense stage, we're going to look at very untidy machinations. We have seen on President Uhuru Kenyatta's side, very many witnesses were interfered with, and some witnesses withdrew. But now we are seeing a scenario where if at all it is true that the late Mesha Kebe, God rest his soul in peace, and we condole with his family, if at all he was a crucial witness to the deputy president's case, you wonder why now at this particular stage the defense witnesses are starting to disappear, whereas the prosecution witnesses, I think 27 or so of them did testify. So I really think it's reckless of Jubilee. In fact, what they should do is they should wait for the legal arms to make investigations, and sufficient recourse should actually then happen, not such kind of comments that we watched yesterday. So
you're saying that because the prosecution witnesses had been disappearing, and that now defense is claiming some of the witnesses are disappearing? I really think it is a systematic,
if you want to look at it, it's a systematic issue in Jubilee. How come that all the 27 prosecution witnesses of William Ruto were allowed to testify, but now you have a defense witness that's supposed to be crucial starting to disappear? I mean,
not just disappear, but dead.
Dead. I mean, that shows you that someone is really trying to do something within Jubilee, and that is, you know, in politics.
Why would they want to kill a witness that would possibly exonerate their own?
That is where the problem now lies, and in fact, for me, that is a legal intrigue, because then it shows that there is more machinations within Jubilee, some things that we're yet to see in the next couple of days. Because one, on the other side, if you think the defense is, if it's a crucial defense witness, why would he be disappearing at this particular stage? In fact, that is one witness.
But are you saying it's the defense's responsibility to protect the witnesses? Don't ICC have their own machinery? And in fact, he'd left where he was being put and came back to Eldoret.
You know what? You know, their defense, their witness protection programs, yes, both locally and internationally.
Correct.
And if at all, I mean, who is in government? Jubilee is in government. If at all Jubilee thinks it's a crucial witness, why would you leave your crucial defense witness to be walking around the whole place?
So you're saying they dropped the ball. What do you think, sir?
First and foremost, allow me to correct that my constituency is Chuka Gambangombe constituency.
Sorry.
Just in case you lose me votes by some other people. In this particular case, actually, one, I take heed of what my friend is saying. We shouldn't actually be talking about having a fact of who is involved in actually the disappearance of this witness. And in the first place, we are not even sure he's a witness because the family says they're not aware. The prosecution says he is not the witness, while the defense says he was a very critical witness. That means somewhere somebody is not saying the truth. And why would really the defense, well, they really need this person. And when it says it's a very critical witness, why would they really be interested in this person disappearing? I should look at the other way around, because we have two sides, the defense and the prosecution. Then if it is politicized, who is on the side of the prosecution in this particular case? If you say Jubilee is in the side of defense, then you know who is on the other side of the prosecution. Then in this particular case, if we insist on politicizing it, then I will insist that the disappearance of this particular witness then has something to do with whoever is opposed to Jubilee. That is a position.
Sophie, let me explain to you something.
Yes.
You know, the defense witness has on several occasions a pointed finger at a couple of people around the presidency in terms of the people who either incriminated the deputy president, and is actually, the defense witness, Khan himself, has stated who he thinks, for example, incriminated the deputy president. That's the first part. But now the second thing we're saying is that a defense witness who is crucial to the deputy president is dead and disappearing. And what we see of Jubilee leadership, they're all up in arms trying to protect that particular, and actually pointing fingers in the wrong direction. You know, something in politics is that it is not true.
How sure are you it's the wrong direction?
Just wait. In politics, it is not true until it's denied. Why would Jubilee quite very quickly come out to deny the fact that they had nothing to do with the disappearance of a witness? So I really think if Jubilee wants to eat themselves internally, I really think it's not fair to point at a single person who they claim was in the process of identifying witnesses. So I really think they need to deal with the problems in their house. Okay. And these ICC cases, I think Kenyans have lived with them for too long. We want them arrested in a good manner without really bringing the other Kenyans who have nothing to do with the cases.
Just on this matter, let us be clear that it is true we want these matters to come to an end.
Yes.
But it is also coming out manifestly clear that some people wanted to come to an end in a certain direction, which they probably hoped would happen sometimes before Jubilee came into power, but did not happen. Now we are approaching another election. Maybe these persons are again trying their luck to ensure that it ends in that direction. And which better direction than to deny the deputy president his witnesses, and thereby have a situation that he cannot in any way defend himself effectively.
Okay. Sophie, let me tell you something. CORD, and I speak for ODM, which is party that I belong to,
yes,
never and was never interested in the International Criminal Court. CORD and ODM was always interested in a local tribunal, one where Kenyans would look at each other, Kenyans would then move forward. Are you speaking for
everyone in the party?
ODM, for example, ODM had a position, we wanted a local international tribunal, and we had nothing to do with the ICC. We never wanted an ICC process because we thought it was going to be untidy. We thought it was not going to give Kenyans a chance to look at each other in the face, forgive each other, and move forward. So, for example, ODM was never interested in International Criminal Court. So the Jubilee went to International Criminal Court, have to deal with their mess, and they have to leave ODM and CORD out of this particular mess. And we really hope that they can sort out their issues and Kenyans then move forward in a manner that is...
Njuki, a final comment on this ICC issue before we move on?
I'm very perturbed by what my friend has said in this particular case, because this is not about the ICC either being in of CORD or Jubilee. It's a question of the people who are involved. You're talking about the president, the deputy president of this country, who are actually the flag bearers of the ruling parties that actually lead this country, who are actually opposed by the CORD. And we know very well during the cases that we never saw any support coming from the CORD to support the presidency in terms of what is going on in The Hague. In any case, we were very, very much opposed, and even the prayers that were happening were opposed all the time. So for him to come out this particular time and say they're not interested, I think it's
I mean, the record speaks for itself. ODM said we want a local international tribunal. There's no single day ODM have advocated for us to go to the International Criminal Court.
I think, with tremendous respect to my colleague, he seemed to get confused between Raila and ODM.
Yes.
If I am very clear, ODM wanted the ICC process. Raila at some point said he did not want the ICC process. So just get it clear. Raila, Luos, and the ODM are totally different things.
I don't think so.
ODM as a party, its members from the chairman Kosgei at that time, coming down to all of them, and the Hansard would bear us clear, were for ICC. Raila as a person came out and said he did not support ICC. So please, if you made a distinction between Raila as a person and ODM as a party and Luos as a community, then maybe you'll be able to make a clear position.
So I think it's Onyango who is getting it all wrong. ODM as a position, ODM supports a local international tribunal. At no point ODM did ever support an international criminal court procedure. But anyway, the fact as they are right now is that Jubilee has to deal with their mess. If they want to eat themselves, they need to go ahead, eat themselves, and keep ODM and CORD out of it. It has nothing to do with 2017 elections. CORD is going to win, and we're going to win with or without ICC. Okay, let's move on, gentlemen. That is a story we'll continue to watch as it develops in coming days. But the untimely, tragic death of Fidel Odinga definitely just gripping the attention of the country. And what's unfortunate now is that it's unclear what killed him. Pathologists yesterday coming out to say it will take about 6 weeks perhaps to get to know that, as samples were sent out of the country for further investigation. And this is not the first time we are having inconclusive results or results still being sent out for further testing. Mheshimiwa Njuki, I'll begin with you. Do you think we need to have a relook in terms of our departments dealing with this, that we do not have people capable enough to be able to, at the end of the day, answer these very key questions, and not only for the prominent people, but also just ordinary Kenyans as well, lose their loved ones, and many people want answers as to what happened?
First of all, let me start by sending my condolences to the family, and especially the leader of the party of ODM, Fidel Odinga. And I also want to send the same to all Kenyans, because in this particular case, this particular young man was a darling of most all Kenyans in particular. And I have never seen an issue that actually unifies Kenya more like the grieving that has happened, and in many other cases. Kenyans more times are more united by grief than many other things. I don't know the reason why. And in this particular case, when it comes to our pathologist, I have seen a tendency of mistrust of the system that we have by people who most of the time suspect foul play. I don't know why we do not have confidence in our pathologists and in the medics that we have in the country. Because if you look back at what happened during the time of Butola Kilonzo, despite the fact that there was early indication of what may have happened. The family and the party in this particular case insisted they needed more independent pathologists, probably from out of the country. Same cases happened during the time of Kajwang, and now it's happening again during Fidel's time. I am not saying that our pathologists are not qualified, but probably we need to have more confidence in them and avoid this idea of having to counter-check what they have done again. So that
but when they're the ones coming out to say after their own examination there are no results,
there's no way we can have no results. There must be results, but it is a question of the owners of this particular issue satisfied with the results. Because if you already have a notion of this is what I suspect, and this is not what you're getting, you may insist that I want to have further clarification. Unfortunately, in most of the incidences, including the one of Mutula Kilonzo to date, we've not had any further report coming from the same.
Okay, Neto.
First, my condolences to the family of the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Raila Amolo Odinga, the Kenyan nation, and for friends of Fidel. Personally, Fidel is a very good friend of mine, supported me during my by-election campaign, both monetarily and also physical support. I really will miss him, and we were looking forward to reinvigorating CORD as we move towards 2017. Perhaps that is not going to come to pass. We look forward to paying our last respects on Saturday in Bondo, and thereafter we will move on as the youth of this particular country. As to the results not being availed, shows several things wrong with the Kenyan pathologists and all that goes with forensic studies. I am happy that my colleague from Chukai Gamba Ngombe says that there's nothing wrong. Mutula's results have never been known several months after he died. And Fidel's results say 6 weeks, perhaps might even take longer. I really think that the regime of pathology in Kenya needs to be regularized differently. It calls for the enactment of a couple of bills. I think there's one that is in the offing called the Coroner's Bill, which will then structure, you know, how do you deal with dead bodies, how do you perform or conduct autopsy on these on the various dead persons, so that we get results in good time. And I think it also needs us to invest slightly more in forensic analysis and issues that will then give us good and quick results. But so far, I think as a country we're doing very poorly, and it is very difficult to determine the causes of death at short instances. I mean, people really want just to know, they want to rest knowing what killed their loved ones. And I really think we as a country are doing poorly along those lines.
Thank you so much. Let me also sincerely express my condolences to the family of the former Prime Minister and Fidel's wife. To those who care to know, Fidel was a very good friend of mine. As he has been eulogized, the man simply had no political, religious, or tribal boundaries. He was a very good friend of mine, and I sincerely condole the family. About this issue, I don't even think that our pathologists are all that wanting or lacking in knowledge to establish causes of death within the required time. How come this thing only happens where people with political connections or leanings die?
But has that been proven? It's just because they're the ones who make the news headlines. Ordinary Kenyans perhaps go
ordinary Kenyans died, these reports are done, analysis come out. I have been a practicing lawyer for about 18 years before I joined politics, and I can tell you that we always use those reports almost as conclusive evidence of the causes of death. We rarely heard of these issues of going to South Africa, going wherever. But from that, when prominent persons die, especially opposition politicians, then usually there's a trend to derive, to milk the most political capital out of it. We want to establish the cause of death, and it should go this way. So when it fails, then we want a second opinion. With second opinion, we want it from outside the country. You are not going to convince me that up to date, the report of Mutula Kilonzo has not come from wherever it went. It must have come. Why is it not now being made public? I'm yet to be convinced that the report of Otieno Kajwang would have to take about a year or two to come. So while I agree with my colleagues that there's need to invest in forensic laboratories, there's need to invest in issues to do with generally our healthcare, there is also need to accept that death is with us. Man must surely die. And we must not point at who has killed the other, so that if it does not go that way, as we milk the political capital out of it, we wait for reports that we hope may come to incriminate someone.
And Neto, as you respond to that, just to add to that, remember after the passing of Otieno Kajwang, even before the post-mortem examination had been conducted, they held a press conference already demanding and insinuating that there was a foul play even before the examination, the autopsy happened. So in that, what do you have to say in terms of the opposition and what will be said usually when we
I really think it is a sad thing for Onyangolo to insinuate that the opposition wants to milk political capital. First, I thought we agreed from the onset that it's the government pathologists that said they're going to take 6 weeks. It has nothing to do with the opposition politicians saying that we're going to release a report in 6 weeks. So that means that the persons in charge are unable to deliver a report, and they're asking for 6 weeks. It has nothing to do with the opposition asking for that. But the second thing is, the politicians have died in very interesting circumstances. Fidel was having a drink, goes to sleep, and doesn't wake up. I mean, Otieno Kajwang was having a drink, goes to sleep and doesn't wake up. I mean, surely...
Well, for Otieno Kajwang, the report and statement that came out was not quite going to sleep and not waking up, was what told him.
But there is contemporaneity. There's a closeness. Because, I mean, some of us spent the last few hours with Otieno Kajwang at Parliament. So when your colleague out of nowhere just succumbs and dies, and that's really, really strange. And especially so if at all they're fairly prominent and they have been fairly vocal, like especially so against the establishment. That is the reason why there's suspicion. We're not saying we want to milk political capital or say anything else. Just tell us how he died, what was the cause of the death, and then we'll rest. But if you tell us it's going to take 6 weeks, then there's a problem.
You have something to say, Andrew?
Yes, you know, death is death. It does not matter who it falls upon. It could be a poor man in the village, it could be the head of United States of America, God forbid. We have to treat it as a death. And I want to say in this particular case, there is always a preliminary report that shows what actually happened. From the scientific view, there will only be a report on its coronary clock, it is heart failure, it is this and that. Those ones are there. But the nitty-gritties on exactly what caused the heart failure is what cannot actually be determined in one day or in the short time that is actually given before the burial takes place. And that is what actually is given more time by the scientists. The scientific processes sometimes cannot be hurried, and it is something that we have to accept. But when we look at it as a process that may either take place in the country or outside the country, we have to accept the fact that it cannot be done by just a touch of a button. And we have to accept it. But we should not interpret it to mean that no results have been availed. They have been availed, but more details are required, which cannot actually happen at the touch of a button.
Okay, we'll definitely follow up that story and see how it develops. But let's shift gears, and it's day 4 that children or students, pupils said to be in class in public schools are staying on at home because of this standoff between the unions and the government. I'll come to you first, Olo, with this, because these issues, some would describe them as perennial when it comes to the education sector. There's always a push and pull, and each side pointing a finger at the other, accusing them of not completely being honest in as far as the agreements that they reach. At this particular point with the demands of the teachers, do you think the government just needs to cede ground, honor their demands to have these children go back to school?
With this issue of the teacher strike, let me say that teachers basically deserve better pay. Everyone in this country deserves better pay, because the whole reason for which we establish a government, the whole reason for which we run programs is that people should live better lives. But we must come to the realization that better pay or better lives come at a cost to others. So there's that which the government can afford at a particular time. Does not mean that the government does not intend to pay the teachers. Teachers are Kenyans as much as judges and politicians are Kenyans. So even as they make their demands, they must realize that these demands are not made in the void, that these demands are made within a concrete environment. so that when the government says we are able to pay this amount of money, the parents, the teachers, the children are also children of some of these teachers. So the government is not reneging. The government is not saying we will not pay. The government is simply saying, as at now, this is what we can afford to pay. And we are imploring our teachers, for the sake of the children of Kenya, for the sake of our future, please accept what is available as at now, go back to class so that learning resumes normally and the children do not suffer. In the meanwhile, the government looks for further resources to ensure that teachers, like everybody else, is properly remunerated.
Yeah. Mheshimiwa Neto, the teachers say that it's only when it comes to them that the wage bill conversation is really overemphasized. That when it comes to other public officers, you have members of parliament, it happens rather fast, and it's huge amounts of money they're talking there.
I really think that we must pay the teachers, and we must get the money to pay the teachers. The nation moves on because people get educated, and the teachers spend the most hours with our children. In fact, if there's anyone in this world, in this country, who deserves a better pay, it's a teacher who spends 8 hours with our children, because that is the only way to make sure that the nation progresses further. I listened to my colleague Onyangolo says that what the government can afford. You know, the word afford is something that is very interesting, because when you want to realize the right to education or economic educational rights as they are, you cannot then flag off this word afford. The thing that we need to discuss is how are we spending the money that we have available? Can we expend the money that we have available to pay the teachers to make them comfortable? Because it's, I'm happy you use the word, it's a perennial problem. We must rest this case of teachers' pay. Right now, the Labour Cabinet Secretary was dangling 9.3 billion shillings. Where was this offer not up in front? Because to pay the teachers sufficiently, you need to help realize it progressively. So now, what should have happened before the teacher strike happened? I'm sure if you give the teachers the 9.3 billion that is dangling right now, before the teacher strike, it should have been a conversation work in progress. It should have been a progressive realization. We should have told them, last year, we have 9.3 billion shillings for you. We are hoping to up it by the amount you want as we progress. That is how to realize the right to education, the right to health, the right to whatever. You cannot wait until there's a strike. Then you tell them, you either take this or you leave, and that you cannot afford. You know, the government has a lot of money all over the place on the wrong projects. The laptop things, I'm waiting for it. Onyangolo, tell your government to use the laptop money, pay the teachers, because first...
Some of it went to Anglo-leasing.
Some of it went to Anglo-leasing. Yes. I'm happy you're telling me that some of it went to Anglo-leasing. That means there's a lot of money that is lost to corruption. In fact, the teachers' pay is one thing that you can afford without even bothering. There's so much money that the Jubilee is wasting in corruption. They're flying all over the place. And if at all they cut these costs, then you can afford to pay the teachers. Let us not play games or play poker with the children's lives. Because each time, I mean, look, the children, Onyangolo's child, my child, and the MP for Chuka, Igambengombe's son, they're both in school. All of them are in school. But the children, the poor people who vote for us, the children, the poor people are out there. The teachers are out there in poverty. I really think it's not fair for a government, especially a government that went on with a beautiful manifesto, a government that went on saying all manner of things. I think you people must find the money somewhere, and you must pay the teachers the amount they want.
Thank you. I think it is totally wrong for my friends to actually insinuate that he knows what happened before that strike took place. Because we don't want to assume that this strike just happened without any back office process. There must have been negotiations before and they were ongoing, even up to the time when the strike took place. And there could not have been any amicable solution that would have been come up with that particular time that is not that this particular case. Nothing changes when the train has left the station, as the NATS Secretary General says. I want to say I have been a teacher. And I know the flight of a teacher when they're teaching in those particular places that I don't want to mention, where you need hardship allowance, where your status expects you to be the man who is the man or the woman who is a role model in the society. You have responsibilities over and beyond the classroom. And I want to say, my honest, teachers need a better pay. However, it is important also to know that The government of the day it's not the first government that is handling teacher strike. It has been an ongoing process for a long, long time. For as long as I can remember, even when I was a child, there were teacher strikes during that particular time. I think we seem to be addressing more or less the symptoms rather than the cause of this particular problem that we have that is perennial all the time. We need an effective communication so that we can have a long-term solution to this problem of strikes all the time. At the moment, the children and the parents are the ones who suffer most when we are having this strike. But in extension, the quality of education also in the country, which in turn will come to affect the whole country, including even these studios we are sitting here, is being manifested at the moment as we talk. Because the last time, I have not seen anywhere in the negotiations where the KNU2 secretary says that if you put the money on the table today, this is what we're going to do to compensate for the time that we have lost during the strike. I think as much as we want to blame the government, and I don't want to say we are squarely innocent of the government, it has to be concerted effort where there has to be both give and take. Because if we maintain these hardline stands that the KNUT has and the government also not giving enough, then the process will continue. I think it is only fair that we also realize as teachers of the KNUT that we do have other sectors that need money. We do have health, we do have transport, we do have the defense forces, we do have the ministries that are currently dealing with the problem of insecurity. We have to take not all the chunk at the same time. We need to bite a little, and what we need in place is just a solution in form of a contract that can be trusted, an MOU that can be trusted to actually deliver. And can deal with the issues once and for all.
Yes. Although the nomination of Joseph Boynet as Inspector General of Police brought back the issues of ethnicity. And the headline today in one of the dailies is about how ethnic groups share public jobs. And you have, according to this image here, that 22.9% of Kikuyus, are the ones leading with a chunk of the public service. 12.8, you have the Kalenjin there, 12.1 Luya, and others. This has been an issue that has been discussed over and over again. And of course, these two, you see the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin leading. You have the president and the deputy coming from these particular communities, and it is seen, it is because of this matrix that you have it now that then the scales are tilting that way, even in as far as the public jobs. Is that a fair analysis?
Thank you so much. Let us look at it this way, that for the first time when Kenyans enacted this new constitution, we brought, at least the term ethnicity found its way into our constitution, and for good reason. That for a long while there have been complaints of unfairness about job allocations, about appointments in government, etc., etc. And we created even a commission to ensure that there is fairness in terms of job allocation and that all ethnic communities are represented, especially in public appointments and public jobs. But this problem was not going to end in a day, because for us to have reached a point that we decided to enact against ethnicity, this issue had reached alarming levels. And it is going to take time before we eliminate it or we address it conclusively and effectively. And I can assure you that the current administration is acting on it very effectively.
But you say acting on it, and yet its latest action only go to fuel this notion that they're just, ensuring it's even integrated further.
Thank you so much. I'm coming to that. Before we even talk about someone getting 10% or 5% or 3%, we must also juxtapose that against the total population of that entire community. In the overall population of this country, it is going to be mean to expect my community, the Luo community, probably to get the same slots with the Ilmolo community, who are probably less than 1%.
And nobody's saying that, because this report breaks it down. Kikuyus are at 5% over where they should be, as far as looking at what you're saying, population.
And that is what I'm telling you, that for us to have put this thing into the constitution, it was something that we had carried for about 40 years, and we need to address it, and we are addressing. When we come to the recent appointment you are talking about, ethnicity or balances did not mean that therefore we stop appointing people for from certain communities effectively. There are also issues to do with competence. There are also issues to do with
Which
skills.
would be argued there are competencies across the board. Why should a CS from a certain community get out to bring a CS from the exact same place? You have IG gets out, another one from the same place. Surely questions, perceptions.
There are issues of perceptions, but as I tell you, there are issues of skills and competences that must be addressed. But we are also operating in a political environment. As a Jubilee administration, we can also not run away from that. Okay? We are also operating in a political environment. But we have taken solid and substantive steps to provide redress to this. But this, as I maintain, must take into consideration the general percentages of the ethnic communities that make this country.
All right, Neto.
I hate to be in Onyangolo's shoes because it discovers is defending things that are indefensible. You know, the problems, one thing that is honest about is that for us to enact a constitution that talks about ethnicity, that means it is a glaring problem. That's a good admission, because then Kenyans agreeing that ethnicity is a big problem that we need to deal with. Now, you see, the constitution that also talks about ethnicity also says that we must be making appointments that reflect the face of Kenya. Jubilee has failed to do that, and I think it's very sad and it's disheartening that we appreciate that moving forward, it was possible before the new constitution to find more Kikuyus or more Luyas or more Kalenjins places. But moving forward, if you want to address the issue, at least the appointments that Jubilee has been making should have been ones that show the face of Kenya, and through they failed to do that. So moving forward, I really think that the best they can do in this country is to, because if you look at all the proposals that they've made, all the nominations that they've made, it is actually the two communities. So that means the ratios are going to go high, and I really think Onyangolo, my colleague from Ichuka here, should really be honest and tell us Kenya needs to move forward, and we really need to address the issue of ethnicity, and at least more Kenyans, more faces, whenever you have a chance, whenever there's an opportunity, whenever. We're saying that, yes, you must reap the political capital of having won the elections. But having won the elections, you're voted for by all the Kenyans, not just the two tribes. So you might not have gotten votes from the fundamentally code regions, but at least you need code competence. You've seen when you took Nkaiseri, you're appreciating that you might be having the numbers, but you might not be having what it takes to do the job. So it's good to spread your wings across, get a few more Kenyans with a bit more competence, and let them come from various communities, and I think that's when Kenya will be moving forward.
And on Kaiseri, some would argue that he was in ODM just on paper. In terms of his heart and his politics, he'd already shifted counts. But let's come to you, Honorable Njuki. Olo argues that at the end of the day, you cannot forget the place of politics, and you don't want to antagonize the support base. But also, surely, as we were talking about perceptions with these recent nominations and appointments, doesn't Jubilee have to be cognizant of the fact that it really has to appear, to be seen, to be doing something to rectify the issues at hand?
Well, one thing we must appreciate is the fact that what is in place today did not happen in just a few days. Jubilee has been in power in the last 1.5 years, and we should be asking ourselves, what is Jubilee doing to address this problem? And I would tell you, yes, they are doing something to address the problem, or we are doing something.
Like what?
First and foremost, I want to remind you that Jubilee government is one that has actually come out very strongly in addressing the issue of the ghost workers, which across the board, both in counties, in the national government, and even in the local authorities, and which has been one of the biggest problems, where we have people on the payroll and actually showing that imbalance in ethnicity while you actually a ghost worker. Because I'm more likely as a senior officer to employ a ghost from my community, where I'll collect IDs from my village and employ them. That has been sorted out. And if you look at the 1.5 years that the Jubilee has actually been in power, I have not seen appointments that can actually say this is specifically Jubilee, including the one that you're talking about in Kaiseri. And in that particular case, I want to remind my friend here that actually what you're saying about Kaiseri having been just in the party, just for the sake of being in the party, is just look at what is happening in his constituency to know that he's surrounded by MCAs who are all TNA, and only him alone was a court. And therefore, it should not be assumed that this was actually a court person. This is a Kenyan who can actually be able to dispense and be able to interact with all Kenyans and be able to serve the Kenyan interest.
So your answer to my question is that what all Jubilee is doing is the biometric registration, which primarily was sorting out the numbers issues and the corruption in the public service, not the ethnicity question.
In Manex, it has also sorted out the issue.
Sophie, I think they're being dishonest here. Look at all the appointments. Show me any single appointment that has not gone to a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu. Since Jubilee came into power. I mean, show me.
Okay,
I mean, apart from perhaps Nyangolo's appointment.
I want to show him.
Show him.
And maybe let me start with his own community.
Yes.
The ambassador to United Kingdom is from his own community.
Okay.
Onyangolo is from his own community.
Marende.
One of the PSS to education is from his own community. I'm only dealing with his own community. The devolution PS is from his own community. Which other communities do you want me to take you through? Marende, we appointed Marende just the other day. We have got.
Let me explain to him something. And I'm happy.
I wanted
just wait. Just pause it there. I mean, I'm happy you're showing me other communities. Just taking it from what the Chuka MP said, Chuka Gambengoma MP said that Nkaiseri might have been only ODM in paper. Onyangolo, your TNA by any standard. So we're talking about. Apart from just being very ethnically inclined, you're also very party inclined in terms of show me of those people that across the board you identify the Kenyans who you think can deliver based on merit, people who think you can deliver in terms of just not being from closely associated with the TNA as such. I really think that Onyango, what you must say and what you must be honest about is the fact that, let's be honest, that Jubilee has made mistakes.
When we are honest, you try to cut so that the truth that does not come out.
Okay.
He did ask that I should explain those who have been appointed who are outside the Jubilee core areas. As I was enumerated them, he has now shifted that I should now address their competences. I was still just giving him the names, and I could do it until evening. If I went to the lawyers, I would give you names. We have Marende, who has just been mentioned, okay? If we went even, I've given you the PSS, I would give you ambassadors, I've given you the CSS.
Good.
As to their competences, the current administration looks at the competence of the people and the ethnic balancing before the appointments are made. So let us not make blanket assertions about post appointments.
Good.
Let us admit that ethnicity has been with us for over 50 years.
Good.
And for us to eradicate this, it is going to take quite some time. And the Jubilee administration has come out effectively to fight this. In fact, the core area of the CORD support has been Lowland, if I'm not wrong. And I can count for you very senior positions that has gone to those places, including the Minister for Defense or the Cabinet Secretary for Defense. She comes from Lowland, isn't it?
Okay, I'll explain to you, Onyangolo, what the Constitution says and the Constitution that you talked about. In all the points you're making, there should be show the face of Kenya.
Yes.
What does that then mean? If I told you have a cabinet of 22 people, or for example, at least there should be, ought to be, the face of Kenya.
Yes.
You understand? And the face of Kenya, then, even if the PSs that you enumerate, I mean, if you're talking about 2 Luos in PSs of 40, there are 42 other tribes of Kenya. Is it possible, for example, that Jubilee tries to have the face of Kenya? That is a problem, and that is what the
But there are not only 2 tribes in this country. We have got about 40 tribes.
Very many. So and it's important to note that they actually, according to this report, there are those tribes that are not represented at all.
That's what I'm saying.
In the public
and that is what you're talking about, the face of Kenya. So that have the various faces of Kenya, the small El Molos, the Ogieks,
to still have representation.
To still have representation.
All right, let's move on to another important topic, and that's security. Last year, very many challenges that the country faced, and we've seen a lot that has happened. Were you both in the House on the 18th of December? And I want to hear your thoughts in as far as what Kenyans saw, watched, witnessed on TV, and a lot has happened ever since. But I'll begin with you, Honorable Njuki, in as far as these laws that the Jubilee government felt was important at that particular time, facing the challenges the country was facing, to be able to up the game in as far as the checks and balances, and what is the efforts being put in place to fight or counter terror, if you like.
First of all, I want to say that we must separate the passing of the law and the politics, because there was total agreement that in our quarters that we need to do something about insecurity in this country, and we had looked at all the areas.
Was there agreement that the law was the problem, that there was a gap that needed to be filled?
Definitely there was. We may not have had 100% consensus, but at least 80–90% consensus, even amongst the legislatures. That we had that agreement, or we more or less agreed to the same. Because if you look at where we were heading, being hit every other weekend, every other week, and what the government had already done. Because already the Jubilee government had increased the number of the machinery, or even like vehicles that to the provincial administration. We had done something about the CCTVs. We had done so much about the police morale by giving them better homes and giving them even packages in medical facilities. We needed to do something else that was actually making this particular system not work. And it all had to do with the chain of command and what was happening, and many that impulse. So that was in agreement. But about what happened in that particular day, I would say this was politics in play. Because up to including a few hours before the bill, in the back rooms of this premises of Parliament, members from both sides of the divides were in agreement that we have already removed this, we remove this, we remove this. The mode of contention could be one or two, but we can debate this and sort it out. However, there was a lot of interference from outside the premises of Parliament, from people who call shots from outside Parliament, and that could be the biggest cause of the problem. And
who are these people?
Regret.
Who are these people that call shots that affect affairs?
I may not be
able
to name particular people, but you could tell that if you have sat down here with my friend and we have agreed this is the way forward, and a few minutes later you said, but how do I explain this to my people? What sort of question is that? How do I justify just agreeing to what we have discussed? And yet we had indicated that we are going to have a lot of resistance in this. What happened that particular day may not have been necessary, but it was necessary to pass the law by all means possible.
What have you just said there? May not have been necessary?
That the activities, the side shows that were taking place may not have been necessary, but it was necessary to pass the law.
Sophie, first
by all means.
By all means.
By hook or crook?
No, not really by hook or crook, because all the standing orders were followed.
Really?
If you go to the Hansard, the steps were followed.
You're not
I'm a Kenyan. I saw. No wonder Sophie's talking. She was not there too. But you can talk then I'll address.
Yeah, let's.
Yes.
No, first, I was not in Parliament that day when when things happened. Sorry, I was out on parliamentary duty out of the country. Onyango, I was not even there in the first place. But I need to say a few things. First, I think what happened, Parliament really sunk low, the lowest it did. And I really think the leadership of Parliament failed Kenyans tremendously. And that what happened in Parliament that day just shows what Kenya is getting to, that we cannot even sit down and discuss as leaders. Parliament is supposed to be an august house where leaders exchange ideas, and we're supposed to be progressive in terms of our disagreements. But the leadership of the house that day failed Kenyans, and so of course the house degenerated into the mess that it was. But I'm happy my colleague thinks that all the standing orders were followed. If Parliament is a house of presidents, then I really think we set a very wrong precedent, that you can pass laws anyhow through hook or crook. That is not what lawmaking is supposed to be. Lawmaking is not supposed to be about fisticuffs, about all that we saw that day in Parliament. I really think it's supposed to be orderly, but I think I squarely...
But in terms of the conduct, both sides are to blame. You cannot point a finger at any side.
And that's why I'm blaming the leadership. I'm not even blaming my colleague from Ishuka, Igamba Ngombe.
And not just the leadership. They're not responsible for how members act. They are
Look, I will explain to you why I'm having a problem with the leadership.
Yeah.
At that point, it is possible to not end proceedings. Parliament has ways. We actually build consensus through kamkunjes. They're informal sessions of Parliament. If as a leadership you discover that the House is gone amok, the best you want to do is pull aside, ask gentlemen, can you cool the temperatures? Can you have an informal session? What is it that you cannot iron out? And you know, what the Deputy Speaker did was really, really magnanimous. I watched part of the proceedings. She did call back to the Speaker. The best which will have happened is, let's get back to plenary. Let's adjourn for some time. Let's cool the temperatures. That is what leadership is about. But you see, the leadership that is supposed to be non-partisan is supposed to be the arbiter, was actually the person who facilitated. In fact, if you look at the clips very carefully, the Speaker's aides are shouting, "Hey!" They're actually part of passing the law, which is really, really despicable. And look, I will explain. Onyango, you'll speak after me.
I will.
So in terms of whether the law was important or not, you know, really, the things that we needed to pass that day. In fact, there is nothing that you can point a finger to and say that if we didn't pass those things before Christmas, Kenya is going to be safe. I'll explain to you. I think the reason Jubilee was rushing was, one, to circumvent the process of appointing the IG. That is one of the fundamental reasons why they were the rushing through the law. And you know what they did is sufficiently went behind the Constitution, sneaked in a bill that says the president can appoint the Inspector General of Police and then recommend to Parliament, circumventing the National Police Service Commission. That is one of the reasons they wanted to pass this particular law. But I'll explain to you several things that was wrong with that particular law that they passed that is in fact making Kenya very insecure. But before I say that, it says that they have done everything to make Kenya secure. What was lacking was just law. Kenya does not need more law to make it secure. Look, one of the problems we have is with terrorists. If you look at the Kenya border with Somalia, Wajir, which shares the longest border with Somalia, Wajir County, go confirm, has less than 100 police and less than 2 police vehicles with no fuel. And that is the most porous border where you have the most terrorists sneaking into the country.
So there are issues that have not yet been addressed.
You don't even need law. All you need to do is to dispatch and look at where the porous borders are and the salient issues. Okay. So for them to believe that we need more law, they just... Is that what you've posted us?
So it's sometimes very interesting to just be in a position to oppose because you never lack anything to say. It is very interesting to hear a member of parliament, a respected one for that, NATO is a very respected member to me, come to say that parliament should only enact legislation through consensus. Consensus or kamkunji is one of the ways through which the leadership of parliament tries to get people to be on the same side. But the reason for which we elect a government or the reason for which people are elected and people vote in parliament is that when you cannot get that consensus, then people must vote and the majority must have their way even as minority have their say. Having failed to get a consensus, we had no business taking water and pouring it on the deputy speaker. We had no business tearing the papers. From the chairman of a leading political party, going snatching papers and tearing them, order paper. The best they could have done there is now to accept that we are a minority. We have lost. And then take it to whichever level they would have wished to take it. So you cannot say that the speaker has to address these things through kamkunji, through consensus. Those are other ways through which
I need to explain to Nyangolo what I'm talking about.
A moment. Those are other ways through which the speaker ensures that parliament discharges its duties in a smooth and clear way. But otherwise, the purpose for which parliament is elected is for them to vote on specific issues and the majority must take the day.
And I want each of you to have, we have just a minute, we have 3 minutes to go before we wrap up, so as you make your closing statement as well.
Thank you very much, and I want to remind my friend Nestor that we are not in parliament. That is the only place you can say anything and you don't have to account for it. Yeah. When you are sitting and talking to Kenyans on Morning Express, you cannot speak with authority about the number of vehicles in Wajir and the number of policemen there unless you actually have the facts, because I don't want to believe what he's saying is true about having just 2 vehicles without fuel, and actually that particular statement about without fuel. Okay. And, you know, we are not in parliament. Okay. It's good to be accountable. Yeah. Now, about the issue of the law having been followed in passing that particular bill, I want to tell you there's nowhere in our standing orders where it says that if you do not have the numbers, that you tear the papers, that you cause chaos in the house. There's nowhere. You can actually be honorable and walk out if you're dissatisfied and leave this process take place. Because in this particular case, when the law was passed under the circumstances which it was passed, they still went to court. It would have been very honorable for you to say, we have been defeated by numbers, and in this particular case, we believe that numbers is not the only thing that works, because that is what is in the law, that is what is in the standing orders, the numbers that really matters. Then you go to court. We would not have had all these acrimonies that are actually happening at the moment because of what happened. Because we have people in parliament now who can actually not talk to each other. Because how do you pour water on me, on my hair, and you still expect to come and smile at me tomorrow and tell me I'm sorry?
Thank you, sir. Final
Two things. The facts that I speak about Wajir, it's for him to go and verify. I can speak with authority on Wajir because we've spent a couple of days there and we discovered what is Kenya's problems. Kenya's problem is that the government, in fact, if you looked at the twice or thrice times there's been clashes in Wajir or in Mandera, the government has been absent because they do not know what's happening there. So verify the facts on Wajir and the northern frontier. But the second thing, I don't think standing orders are followed, and I think I do not know what standing orders is talking about. Standing orders of parliament say that whenever anyone is speaking, no 2 people can be, no 200 members can be on their feet. We watched through the clips of parliament that 20 or so members were standing. That in parliamentary parlance that one standing orders means they're calling for division. So is it true, just wait, is it true then that for all the entire period, 3 or 4 hours, all that Parliament was calling for was a division? And if at all they're calling for division because they're on their feet, how come the leadership did not then call for division in each instance?
It will be important for him to put the standing order. Let him put the standing order and say
the third thing, and the last one I want to say, I am not inviting the speaker to try to achieve consensus. No, what I'm saying, when you see a ceremony, the best you want to do is supposed to be an independent arbiter. It's supposed to be an umpire to help get the best in the circumstances. You do not form part of the process, and you got so engrossed, you forgot that it's supposed to be a neutral person, you forgot it's supposed to be the leadership, and you help in the cheerleading of the mess.
Thank you so much. I think mine is very brief. The state of the nation is that the opposition is not yet ready to be in government. They are unable to discharge their duties maturely, coherently, and consistently. They must still go and put their act in order.
How do you rank your performance? I'm interested to hear. Jubilee government.
As a Jubilee government?
Yes, so far. On a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to 10? 8.
1 to 10? Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Njoki, yes.
I would say around 7.5.
7.5. Government.
2.
Okay, that's where we will end it this morning. That's the state of the nation. My guest, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Onyango Olo, who's the TNA Secretary General, also with us, MP Chukaigamba Ngombe, Member of Parliament, Onesmus Njuki, and Agostino Neto, who's the Ndiwa Member of Parliament. We're also meant to have Kaluma Peter, who's the Homa Bay Town MP, with us, but he unfortunately could not make it for the discussion today. But otherwise, although we still had a great discussion with my guest. That's the state of the nation as of 8:21 a.m. We take a short break. When we return, we're all about your image, branding. You must work on that in the new year if you have not, or take it more seriously if you do not. And Derek Banga will be joining me for that discussion. Don't go away.